War of the Wardrobes is the 13th Mary-Kate and Ashley Two of a Kind book, and it definitely raises some interesting discussions. I think maybe it's a little bit too easy at one point, which I will talk about, but there's also an important message in here about thinking about others' feelings and how your words or actions may affect them. So this is one that is, I'll show you the back there before I forget. This is another one that's set at White Oak Academy. And because they've been, taken advantage of the lack of school uniform or dress code, the school has decided that it's time to bring in uniforms. And everybody is completely against this idea, especially when they hear what the uniforms are going to be like. They sound like they're going to be a very kind of traditional box pleat skirt, knee-high socks, very crisp blouses, that kind of thing. And Mary-Kate and Ashley and their friends decide to do everything they can to try and get rid of this uniform policy. And I'll talk more about that in a moment with a spoiler warning as I discuss the things that they do. And also how I said at one point it might have been a bit too easy. But it really is an interesting discussion of raising the questions of the importance of school uniforms. Ashley is actually forced to write a column for the school newspaper in favour of uniforms. And if you read to the back, I'll try and not spoil anything, we do actually get to see that newspaper, which I think is always a really nice touch with these. And there you get to see Ashley's column with the points that are for uniform. And I, having grown up in the UK, where uniforms in schools are definitely pretty much always the case, I'm actually for uniforms. And it definitely has an interesting discussion. I'd love to know what you think of this if you go to school or went to school and didn't have school uniforms. If they brought in a school uniform policy, how would you feel? How would you react? But ultimately what ends up happening, I think, is pretty sensible, pretty smart, and definitely the right way to go. So I'll discuss some spoiler points from now. So spoilers from now, what actually happens is they realise they're not going to just get away with no change to the dress code. So they ask for a dress code, because at the moment there isn't really anything. And they kind of meet this middle ground where they're not having to wear these uniforms specifically, but at the same time, there are some rules and restrictions about what they can and can't wear. And I think that's a really nice compromise. They did, through their protests, make fun of the new uniforms, and the person who designed them was quite upset about that, so there's an important message there about just being mindful of how you go about doing things. The bit where I said it was too easy is that there is, at one point, they go to the mall to enter a competition to win a makeover and a brand new wardrobe of about, I think it was about $300. And they both go, Mary-Kate and Ashley team up, and they win. And this all takes place over one chapter. And I feel like there could have at least been a little bit more of a challenge or another kind of obstacle there to overcome. It just felt too easy and too unbelievable. Sometimes these books are a little bit far-fetched, but so far that's definitely one of the most kind of unrealistic things that kind of pulled me out of the narrative a little bit. But generally speaking, I thought it was interesting. I think the topic is definitely very important. Definitely well handled, I think. The fact that it gave positive points about uniforms is something I really appreciate, especially if there are children or preteens reading these books who have to wear uniforms and who hate them. Maybe just suggest the positive things. As I said, though, I am in favour of uniforms as a rule. I didn't mind it. It's not the best written. It's not the most convincing. But War of the Wardrobes is still pretty decent. And if you're a fan of Mary-Kate and Ashley, I think it's one you'll probably enjoy.